like to welcome Greg Klein from the Rogers Family Foundation. And Greg, I'd like to just kind of ask you to tell me a story for what the Rogers Family Foundation is, maybe what your role with the foundation is, and how that helps to promote next generation learning and especially personalized learning.
Sure. So I'm Greg, and I've just now started my third year here at the Rogers Family Foundation in Oakland, California. We're a family foundation, and I lead our next gen and blended initiatives. So what that's looked like for the last 2 school years has been supporting now 8 schools in Oakland to kind of transition from just a traditional factory model to more of a blended learning approach, which kind of has ended up being a hybrid model. Most of our pilot sites, those 8 schools, still have the overarching structure they had before we started our support there, but within the classrooms they look dramatically different. So instead of a lot of stand and deliver lecture instruction or whole group instruction, there's much more of a mixture of other groupings and using online content and the blend of small group instruction with the online content. And so our support comes in the form of grants, right? So these are 3-year grants to these schools. Most of the money comes up front, and then it's less money in year 2 and less in year 3. And then the sites also get my help to whatever I can be helpful with around project management, the purchasing or using the grant dollars, professional development for teachers, advocacy back to the central offices to get other resources lined up. So that's kind of what the blended pilots have done, and there's more information about those up on our website, rogersfoundation.org. And then our new initiative, which we are just launching this fall, is called NGLC in Oakland. So that's Next Generation Learning Challenges in Oakland. We were selected along with 5 other kind of regional partners to organize this sort of competition or process for schools, and in our case, we're running the process in Oakland. There are other partners around the country running it in DC or Chicago or New Orleans. And so it's an opportunity for Rogers to basically convene school leadership in the city, district schools, charter schools, schools that are planning and hoping to open their doors, existing schools that are hoping to transform. So it's pretty open. And we're going to do a series of planning grants, and then about a year later, some launch grants to ultimately, again, launch or relaunch high-quality next-gen schools by the fall of 2016.
That sounds awesome and very connected to what we're doing. A couple questions I have for you, Greg. One, your title has the word innovation in it.
Yeah.
Could you tell me how that plays into your world?
Sure. I guess it's all kind of relative. So when we were thinking about, the right appropriate title, we were trying to capture a little bit about the work that I was already doing at the foundation and a little bit of being aspirational and how it could kind of push and open new doors and think about what the work could look like moving forward. So particularly in the context of supporting our district schools and our local charter schools, I think we're thinking about the idea of innovation that we've had a school system for a long time, and we know the results we get with our school system, and we are not satisfied with those results. And we go around town, and it's very rare we find people who are satisfied with the results that we're getting. So there's a lot of common ground around that. And so we think about innovation as a way to tackle those same generation after generation kind of data and results of our system of schools. And we think that innovation is just a way that we can approach those same data, those same trends, those same predictable indicators, and attack them with a new set of ideas and a new set of plans. And we're pretty open around what that could look like. It is certainly not just about like apps and technology. So I guess I would end with that.
I think one of the words you used to describe what you did was a process. And the number one question I get, especially from high schools, it's harder for them to envision what school might look like Would you share with me the process that you use to kind of build confidence, to
Sure.
possibilities? That would be valuable.
Yeah, I guess we kind of did it in a couple of bookends. It's there's a couple of things that you can do like real what I call like low hanging fruit with teacher leaders. So mostly our pilots started with people who raised their hand and said, I want to do something about this, something about technology or rethinking my classroom, or I've got the brain space and will to kind of play a little bit. So that was kind of who our teacher clientele were and our leadership clientele from the admin side. And so with some of those teachers, it was about, well, you've never had an opportunity. I mean, we're talking about schools that the internet networks didn't work, let alone the wireless networks. The student-facing devices meant one or two old desktops in the back of the corner of the room, that kind of thing. So we went from being
Uh,
so that was one end, kind of on the ground.
hey, Greg.
Sorry, it looks like we have a hang. Are we still okay?
Yeah, I just came back. I'm going to re-ask you that question
Yeah.
again. Okay, we'll edit all this. So, um, I because
Okay.
to me, this is
Okay.
crucial to what we're trying to do is to really get people to realize that there is a process here that goes on. And I loved what you were saying about let's start with the low-hanging fruit. So let's go back. I'm going to re-ask that question again, and we'll just go from
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Greg, you
Yeah.
you mentioned
I can say it better.
yeah you mentioned in your description there the word process that you went through a process to make change in a brick and mortar school. Would you describe for me how you guys went about doing that?
Okay, so we've kind of thought about it in two ways. We wanted to both kind of get people.
Ah,
Hey, it dropped me off and now I'm back.
yeah. Okay. So
All right,
let's
let me
yeah.
let me. So when we thought about the process for supporting schools to make these transitions, we thought about both kind of high level visioning and kind of pretty strategic and complex pedagogical change, and we also thought about kind of more immediate what we called like low-hanging fruit. And so we thought, we tried to work at both ends of that spectrum. So in terms of the low-hanging fruit, we went into classrooms and helped support going from basically zero technological infrastructure to wireless internet networks and one-to-one device computing in pretty much all the rooms that teachers and students could rely on day in and day out. And we gave them the training you need to solve the most basic classroom problems around organizing files and turning work in and stuff like that, and leveraging relatively simple online content tools. So we found when we did that was that teachers just flew. Teachers all of a sudden the world opened up. It was like, and this is what happens when people get connected to the internet. It was all these substitution solutions. Instead of doing it like this, I could do it like this, but it's quicker, faster, easier, and the kids don't lose it and all that sort of stuff. So there was a series of substitution gains that just made the old model more efficient. Right? It wasn't all that breakthrough and it wasn't all that amazing in and of itself, but it brought a sense of hope and fun and just sense of ability to the lot of the classrooms. So that was on the low-hanging fruit side, which really just some solid tech infrastructure and some basic PD kind of brought. And then on the really pushing our practice side of things, the best thing we could do was get our teachers out to visit other schools. So we did hangouts like this, connecting them to teachers at other schools who are a little bit further down the path. We visited schools. We watched videos of schools that have been posted online, where they do give you a tour or a little synopsis of what the school was like. We read about other schools, that kind of stuff. So they could have a sense of that they weren't the only ones out there trying to figure this out, and that they didn't have to figure it all out by themselves. There were plenty of other people with who had already tried a bunch of things, and if they wanted to, they could build upon those lessons learned already.
I
So
love it.
those are the two bookends, and then ultimately we got a few teachers, or more than a few teachers, who were they themselves pretty innovative and exciting and trying and really pushing the envelope. And from there, we could then push the next set of local educators. They didn't have to look as far. They didn't have to look across. They could look a little closer.
It sounds like you might be familiar with SAMR,
Yeah, yeah,
just by the words you're throwing out there a little bit.
yeah.
We have a lot in common. So a lot of what you've got going on are some things that we've kind of done in a small sense. How have you scaled it up to be able to meet the needs of an entire building or district?
Yeah. Well, so in terms of the pilots, the grant dollars, they've how did we scale it up? I mean, one, we phased it in over a few years. So like at first it was only a handful of teachers, and then basically as the year went on, there was an internal school process led by the principal generally and teacher leaders at the school to kind of figure out, well, who else needs to start doing this in the spring or next fall. And so then grant dollars and site dollars we kind of had a mixture that went towards like additional infrastructure that might be needed to get more classrooms literally online. Other ways that we've tried to scale this. So California, we're out here in California, we're in the SBAC consortia, and so California decided to give all of its districts one-time money last spring, or I guess last winter, to help those districts transition to the Common Core. And Oakland Unified spent half of that money on infrastructure, technological infrastructure to aid with the move to Common Core, and simply the aid to be able to administer the Smarter Balanced assessment. So when they went to do that, we were in relationship with the CTO. We know who that person is who's going to be leading that process, and we said, you should, by all means, for example, we deployed 1,000 Chromebooks in your school, in 6 of your schools, in your district schools, and you can go talk to the teachers about what it's like, and this was the wireless access point we used, and et cetera, and this is how we set them up. So if you like what you see, or even if you don't like what you see, you could consider our lessons learned as you write a bigger RFP for $3.5 million about what you're going to do. So they did do that, and they definitely took and built from our deployment, and that public deployment, it was 10,000 devices. It hit every district school, and a lot of district schools there's a lot of site-based autonomy in the budget, and so they spent additional dollars buying more carts on top of their district allocation. So, school started last week here in Oakland for the district schools, and it's the first time teachers and students have come back, and there is a baseline level of wireless networks and student-facing devices that they can actually use for teaching and learning on a regular basis. So we are, in a lot of ways, in terms of scale, there's stuff out there. We are just beginning to figure out how to scale the knowledge it takes to go with it. But and I can answer a little bit more, but I'll pause there.
Yeah, that's exceptional and kind of cool. One last thing I want to ask you about is, it sounds like you may have provided some coaching for teachers in a one-on-one basis. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I did. So when it came to the 8 pilot sites, there were some foundational PDs where it was clear through the planning and conversation with them that I was like, we need a 2-hour PD, and I'm going to teach you about this, or this, and then from there you'll be good. And then as it moved on, I was kind of more just an on-call provider. So if a teacher wanted help with something, we would set up a time like on their prep or after school and stuff like that. And over time, there's honestly been less and less of that as the teachers kind of are better and better at figuring out themselves. And the next round of teachers kind of coming up behind them at their same schools as the pilots have grown, they're not looking to me. They just look to their colleagues across the hall who went a year ahead of them. So a lot of the basic learnings, that low-hanging fruit stuff, I barely touch anymore.
Got it. Okay, Greg, thanks a lot for your time, and I'm going to end the broadcast at this time.